about logic puzzles. So in a logic puzzle, there are a couple main ideas and approaches in order to be successful. First of all, you never guess. Never, never, never guess. Second, we're going to be using a skill called inference, which means we can infer because of this, there's a consequence or an effect. We're going to use sentences that are going to say something like, well, if this, then to find the effect. And that will help us narrow down our choices in this logic puzzle. Now, when I do logic puzzles on my own, I typically use a pencil, but because I want you to really see how these clues each give you different things, I am going to use some nice bright markers, especially since I know my light will turn off at some point. Now, in a logic puzzle, since we are filling out a chart, you need to have a key. It's almost like a map. So for me, one of the things I'm going to use is when I use an X, that means the answer is no. But when I color it in, I want that to be a yes. Okay? So let's take a look at what these different clues do. So typically in a logic puzzle, there are a couple different parts. You're going to have a title that's going to give you some information about the puzzle. Sometimes there's an image to give you some hints. So this is Logic Puzzle Potion Pots. All right, looks witchy, potions, pots, gotcha. There's also going to be some sort of a story or some background that sort of gives you a map to lay this all out. And then there are going to be clues that really do give you the information you need, never guessing. So Hemlock, Yarrow, Mandrake, and Nightshade are witches. Each witch uses a secret ingredient to make their potion powerful. Each witch also has their own pot where they brew their potions. Now you're going to use these clues to identify the secret ingredient and type of pot that each witch uses. So each witch uses a different ingredient, and each witch will use a different pot. So if Hemlock uses werewolf fur, no one else does. If Mandrake uses a monster clamshell, no one else does. So let's see what's going on here. Clue number 1. Hemlock does not use werewolf fur or toenail clippings in her potion. Nice, direct, to the point. Nightshade cooks her brew in a monster clamshell. Now we have some inference. If Nightshade uses the monster clamshell, then she is not using any of the other pots. And if Nightshade is using monster clamshell, no one else is. We're really starting to narrow things down. You can see Hemlock's choices are narrowed down. More narrowing down here is process of we're eliminating things to identify what we need to find. Now Mandrake does not use a cauldron. So Mandrake does not use a cauldron or a pirate skull when she cooks her mosquito legs. Let's think about what are the inferences that can be made from this. Let's look over here. If Mandrake cannot use a monster clamshell, a cauldron, or a skull, she must be using a turtle shell. And if Mandrake is using a turtle shell, no one else is. Wow, we're really narrowing down the pots there. All right, let's take a look over here now. If Mandrake is using mosquito legs, no one else is. And if Mandrake is using mosquito legs, she's not using another secret ingredient. Do you see something else we could fill in? Take a look at Hemlock. Hemlock is not using fur, clippings, or legs, which means Hemlock must be using the slug slime. And if she's using the slug slime, no one else is. Wow, that was a fabulous clue. It really gave a lot of information. I'm actually sort of excited right now. I know, I nerd out on these things, sorry. Okay, another clue. Yarrow uses either a cauldron or a turtle shell to cook her toenail clippings. All right, let's make some inferences. If Yarrow is using toenail clippings, then she's not using werewolf fur. If Yarrow is using toenail clippings, then no one else is. Oh, check it out. What do we know about here? If Nightshade is not using toenail clippings, mosquito legs, or slug slime, she must be using werewolf fur, and no one else is using it. Wow, now let's look over here. If Yarrow has to be one of these, this is already crossed off. Mandrake's already using the turtle shell, which means Yarrow must be using the iron cauldron. And if she's using the cauldron, she's not using a skull. And if Yarrow's using the cauldron, Hemlock can't, which now means, bunga, 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 bunga. What do we know about this one? Hemlock cannot use the turtle shell, cannot use a monster clam shell, cannot use a cauldron, so she must be using the pirate skull. And so we have completed this puzzle using 4 of the 5 clues. Now, sometimes clues are a red herring, which means it's a piece of information that's just a distractor. It's not something that's really necessary. There's also redundant clues because you may not have caught everything. So let's see what 5 has to offer us. The pirate skull, right there, is used to cook the slug slime. And we have that. So that is a really nice check for us. We have solved our logic puzzle. Now, in your packet, you have some other logic puzzles. You have mummy wraps, which is actually challenging. So please pay attention. These are in hundreds, and these are in meters. You have witchy thingies. So we've got some witchy thingies. And the final puzzle is listed as challenge. This is actually the logic puzzle that showed up in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and it was solved by Hermione Granger. This is an excerpt from the book. This is the exact puzzle that Hermione read. Here is a grid to help you record your information. Here is something what Hermione saw in the movie. This is obviously someone else's rendition to help you with the puzzle. Now, I'm going to be honest. I've been doing this puzzle definitely 17 years. The first 10 years that I solved this puzzle to get an answer key, I would read it the first time and say, that's not possible. But it is. I solve it every year. So I have to quiet that voice in my head and say, chill, chill. The information's there. So we want to look at some other strategies that you can use, okay? So some things that you may want to consider, all right? You may have to reread. There it is, reread. You may have to underline important information. Okay, so you're going to have to mix slowly. Do the best that you can. This does take some poetic license, but this is a challenge of it. Do you have to do it? No, but you do have to do the others. Best of luck.